right, welcome to the Sunderland School Committee meeting of Tuesday, June 17th. I'll call the meeting to order at 7:06. And we've got the minutes of May 20th to approve. Do I have a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 20th.
Any
Second.
discussion or? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Patty, financial statements?
Okay, so before you, you have the results of May, and we have two new variances. One is on page 1, and it's the network admin and the computer tech salaries, and these are over due to an unexpected payout of vacation benefits for an employee who left. And then also on page 1 and page 2, our salary lines are over. And this happens every year because it's just a projection. We try to keep it under, but it inevitably goes over. But we're doing okay. The year-end projection, we've already paid $10,000 to the town of Sunderland for our warrant article next year, as well as another $10,000 for the cafe manager. We're still projecting to have a surplus, and we would outline our priorities for spending as follows. One, our school lunch, depending on June's numbers, we may still need another $1,000 to $2,000 to balance it by year end. So that would be our first priority. Our second priority would be for classroom technology. Mr. Barshevsky would like to have some smart boards added to some of the classrooms. Third would be building technology. We really need a new server for this building, and it's just more apparent now that we have our MBI live that our servers are just not capable. So that would be our third priority. Fourth, we would like to make sure that our school choice money is in balance to the budget as we budgeted it this year, so that we don't incur any overages next year. And lastly, whatever remains, if anything remains, after taking care of those first four priorities, we return the balance to the town of Sunderland, again, towards the retirement warrant for next year.
What was the school choice bit? What was that?
I'm sorry, could you say that again, the return, could you just repeat the return the balance?
And anything, if we have, after we take care of the priorities for the building,
Yeah.
anything left over, we would return to the town of Sunderland so they can put it towards our warrant article next year for the retirement.
Okay. Yep. Sorry, Doug.
School choice, I just want to make sure that our budget this year stayed our budget, because we're already projecting a very small
Right.
surplus next year, so I want to make sure our budget didn't go over this year.
So some into that fund, or whatever, so it basically moves it in the budget to the
Right, I
school
would
choice,
take-
so that
exactly.
the ending balance ends up where we were projecting it.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we will need a vote on this, so,
Okay.
okay, if you agree with the priority list.
This right now, Marty? We'll do that right now.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
So- Ballpark on the amounts for the,
I don't have anything right now, Donna.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
just, it's hard to come up with an amount because we don't have a purchasing encumberancing system. I don't know what's coming in for invoices of what's still out there. So I have to wait as the bills come in. We have our payroll projected out, which is,
Sure.
a good amount, but it's those, like at the end of last year, we spent a lot of money for bills that were trickling in.
Yeah.
So I don't want, and you've already okayed for us to fix that boiler, and I don't have that invoice yet, so I don't know what that's gonna cost us.
Right.
So I'm
So that
really just trying to
lingers.
say, if we have some money.
right, these are the things, yeah.
So this
We'd like
is
to
just,
take
we're
care
just
of.
voting on the priority list.
You're just
the
voting on
order
the
of
priority list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I get a motion for that?
Can I say so moved?
Sure you can.
I'll second that.
All right. All of those in favor of the priority list that Patty just discussed?
Aye.
And then we just had the 6 warrants to sign, which you did, and your chair signed the bus contract. We have a new bus contract starting July 1st, and your chair signed that, and I will get it over to Mr. Gripko for his signature, and we'll be all set with that. That's all I have, unless anyone else has any questions.
All right.
I do have a question, because I feel like this was a sticky one, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. The return to the balance of the town of Sunderland toward the retirement warrants for next year, that's because we already know about some retirements, unlike the year before, where they were kind of surprises, and so we didn't know those numbers, and so now we know that there's retirements, so we're planning for those.
Yes, and what we did this year, instead of include them in our budget, the town put them on a separate warrant.
Yep.
They've asked us if we have any monies available, if we could please apply it to that warrant. So we've already sent them $10,000.
It's actually
Okay,
to the,
towards the one now. Okay, so this is not
This
next
is on
year.
top
I
of-
got it.
No, the warrant is for next year.
You're right.
Okay,
It's a FY15 warrant in the amount of $85,000.
Okay.
So we've sent them $10,000 this month. So now the warrant, it would only be $75,000. So we're helping the town reduce the amount of that warrant.
but it's the warrant we've been talking
the
about,
one that was at town meeting.
this budget cycle, Tracy,
Correct.
yeah,
Okay,
But
Yeah.
they do not want a separate warrant article in the future.
ever.
okay.
What they would like is any overages to be put into this account so that when we have to draw on it, it's not gonna kill our budget and we don't have to do a separate article.
And we don't
Will that
just-
account stay? I mean, with that warrant, will the account stay active, or will we need to do we know?
I'm not
So-
sure I follow the question.
So the warrant created the account, right, for that, for the retirement?
On the town side, not on our side.
Correct. And that will that account stay active past 2015, FY
Like a
2015? I guess?
stabilization
No,
account? Is
no,
that what
no,
you're
it's a
saying?
one-time only warrant, and
Okay.
we will pay up to $85,000 or whatever, in the change, that,
Okay.
we would close that warrant next year.
And then it'll close, okay, so,
That'll be that.
Okay, so it doesn't,
so in terms of a mechanism for the future,
No.
there's still
We have
to be
nothing
worked
yet.
out.
Right.
We're
Okay.
still, yeah,
okay,
discussions to
okay.
be had.
I understand it now, thank you.
Too. Thanks.
Right,
So for public comment, I would like to have Louise Law talk about the new report card system. I think Doug, you had asked for an update on how that is, and she's our, as you know, our Director of Elementary Curriculum.
Well, I'm
bring us
hoping,
popsicles?
on this hot evening. Oh, it's warm. I put some information in the packets that I'll be happy to go through in an attempt to address some of the questions that some people might have. Whenever you introduce a new report card system, there's an adjustment period for everybody, getting used to what do these grades mean, how are we assessing. Our first priority this year was to align our assessment and reporting system to the standards teachers were being asked to teach under the new Massachusetts standards based on the Common Core. So our old report card was not at all aligned. It was created about 11 years ago. So I put a copy of that in just for reference. And so we can do a little comparison. I have a third grade report card that was the report card we had up until this year. And then here is this year's third grade report card. So just to show you what some of the large differences, and we understand it takes families, children, and teachers a while to get accustomed to what all of this means. In our old report card, well, I'll start with the new one. The new report card, we have two categories for skills that support learning. And these are right on the front because they are the habits and behaviors that students, if they develop these skills and habits and behaviors, will be successful in school. So these were based on a great deal of discussion, research, grade level meetings, and looking into what is it that we ask of a child who spends 6 hours a day in a classroom. So the first set, classroom and community skills, are about how is the child integrating themselves into the group, because schools, most of the work is done in groups. And the second is approach to learning, which is more about work habits. So the first are, we used to call them social skills, but they're really about being part of your classroom community. The second used to be about, we used to call work habits, but it's really about how does a child approach their learning. So as you can see in the former report card, work habits were at the bottom. They weren't on the front page. We called them work habits, and they were basically 8 things that we evaluated or assessed during the course of the year. Completing and turning in homework on time, class assignments, contributing appropriately to class discussions, listening actively, participating in small groups, keeping work organized, following rules and procedures, demonstrating respect for peers and adults, and does quality work. We didn't have a rubric for this. We didn't really have a consistent way to measure this. It was based on teachers' observations of children in the classroom. But quite frankly, it was very subjective. One teacher's opinion about what organized work looks like was very different from another teacher's opinion. So based on who your teacher was, you might get a message in 3rd grade that your work is very organized, and you go to 4th grade and there's a different standard, and now the child is being told they don't keep their work organized. So we didn't have that consistency of definition. Although we listed things that teachers valued, and I think most people would agree these are important classroom behaviors, we weren't as clear about how to grade or report on those. So what we came up with years and years ago was frequency. Does the child do it consistently, often, infrequently, and not applicable? So there was a lot of discussion about what's the difference between often and consistently. So we needed to improve on that, yes. So what we came up with now was some rubrics that are on the left-hand side. The teachers worked to develop these definitions collaboratively of listening actively. What does that look like? And M is in green because that's the goal, mastering or meeting the expectations. Some children will go beyond what is expected, and we wanted the ability to note that. But the M column is what we aim for, what the instructions are. So, consistently demonstrating active listening skills, if you do it most of the time, that's meeting the expectation. A child who can model it to peers, who the teacher might say, I see that Susie is listening in the way that I've asked. Susie, can you explain that? Or would people look at Susie? Or Susie might help a new child in the class who needs to understand what does it look like when the teacher asks us to listen. So the M plus is really children who will either voluntarily or be asked to model for other children. That's going beyond what the expectation is. So throughout all of these behaviors, skills, etc., we work to define what does it look like when a child can do this, and what does beyond the expectation look like. It's really when you reach out to help somebody else. We don't expect children to do that, but some children do that naturally, some children grow to do that, and we wanted an ability to indicate that. So that's why we use this rubric, and teachers spend a lot of time discussing how often is often, what is volunteering, relevant contributions to class discussions. Each of those is going to look differently as children mature through a grade. An expectation for contributing relevant contribution to a class discussion in kindergarten will be you stay on the topic. If we're talking about the butterfly, you don't introduce
Dragons.
yes, dragons or Thanksgiving dinner or, but in 6th grade, a relevant contribution is much more sophisticated. So there is that flexibility within that rubric to grow it with the children, but that M plus is contributing new insights or deeper understanding. So it's beyond what we expect. We hope for it, but the expectation is that if we're on the topic, you stay on the topic and you contribute appropriately. So all of this was devised by the teachers to ensure that we were much more consistent than we've ever been about how we evaluate these kinds of skills that are important for school. We're going to continue this conversation with feedback from families, and we did ask for feedback on how clear the report card was. From across the district, we've got 229 responses to a survey sent out with the report card, the very first report card. And this is a representation of the responses that came in, of how people felt about is the wording increasing my understanding? Does it identify my child's achievement? Are the proficiency levels clear? And so some areas we got a much stronger response than we did in others. And we also got very clear and numerous comments that we are reading. I've read all of them. There were about 1,000 comments among the 229 responses. They tended to cluster. You know, there tends to be a theme. What you look for is there a theme? And so some of the themes were that families felt confused by having two different keys. We tried to make one that matched the behavior key and one that matched the academic performance. And so we are working this summer with a team of teachers to make it one key that can really be clearer to families, because that was feedback that we appreciated and understood was challenging to understand. In addition, if you look at academic areas, for instance, writing, we used to have 2 grades, topic development and conventions. Now under writing, we're looking at the various genres, we're looking at the process, and we're scoring according to each rubric that we have for each particular part of the year. So for instance, during November, we have rubrics for writing. The goal for grade level is not as high as it is at the end of the year. So the skills fall on a continuum, and we've trained teachers, and this is in your packet too. We've trained teachers and worked collaboratively to score actual samples of actual student writing and to determine where on the rubric does this particular piece of writing fall, and is that at what we consider grade level for this point in the year. And that is a progression that shifts. By the end of the year, we're expecting a higher skill performance than we do in the beginning of the year. So we have rubrics that we have. This particular rubric is from the writing program we're using, Lucy Calkins, and we just are having teachers submit their end of the year data. We score every child's on the 3 genres, narrative, opinion, and informational text. Using these rubrics, this one happens to be for narrative. There's a different rubric for every grade level, but it all falls on a continuum, and the beauty of it is we can get a grade level equivalent for children's writing that's based on really recent research on what it looks like, and we have consensus. So we can say in the fall of 3rd grade, if a child comes in with average 2nd grade skills, which is typical according to this, but by the end of the year, they're between 3rd and 4th grade, that's over a year of progress. A child who's performing below grade level, we can find exactly where their performance is and see if the growth was a year's growth. So a child who's struggling, we can still measure, whereas in the old system, you just didn't meet the standard. So we're getting much more specific about what does it look like when you're meeting grade level, where is the child on the continuum, and it's all about informing instruction. That's our big goal. So that's a rubric. For that, we have numerous rubrics, but what the children see are checklists. So the checklist is a self-reflection. The rubrics are really for teachers, except sometimes when they get in the upper grades, they can handle the sophistication of a rubric. But we ask children to do a lot of self-reflection and assessment. So before children get scores on skills that support learning, the teachers ask them, rate yourself. Do you listen and ask relevant questions? How often do you do it? Never. Most of the time, rarely, because we're not going to give them this particular key, but we're going to ask them, be honest. And if you're rarely listening actively, how can we help you move towards sometimes and eventually more times and always? So we ask children to do self-reflection on both their behaviors and skills as well as their academic areas. So this is, I've shown you a rubric, but a child would see something that looks like this. You know, I wrote a beginning in which I set readers to expect that it would be opinion piece and tried to hook them into caring about my opinion, not yet starting to yes. So this self-reflection is something that for years and years of research say leads to better growth. If a child can step back, or a learner, adult learner, child learner, can step back and say, am I really doing this? And accurately reflect on where they are, it gives them a next step.
Sure.
So that's where we are. It's still a work in progress. We're going to spend, I already met with grade levels about the report card and shared some of the parent positives and some of the parent concerns. And a group is working together this summer to refine and to continue to grow our report card towards something that is as easily understood but accurate as we possibly can make any evaluation of human behavior of learning.
Sure.
So that's where we are. Are there any further questions about that?
I had one very quick question.
Yeah.
With the little self-assessment, have the teachers given you any feedback that it's pretty close, the way the child
Yes,
self-assesses?
well, they're
to
harder on
what-
themselves.
Are they a little harder on themselves?
Several of them are harder on themselves than the teacher. The teacher, you know, they'll say, well, I didn't contribute to the class discussion yesterday, so I think it's sometimes. And the teacher said, well, you
It's
contributed
one.
Big
58
picture,
times.
yeah.
And so
Right.
kids tend, but just the pausing and reflecting helps you internalize what those standards are. So it's not that the teacher graded me.
Right. I own it.
It's all about what
Yeah.
I am demonstrating. And a lot of what we talk about now is, instead of grading, is where's the evidence of learning? Evidence of learning. So in the writing, it's clear. In math, it's clear. In reading, we have benchmarks where children are assessed, but we say the evidence that the child is on grade level or meeting grade level standards in March looks like this, and moving up, it looks like something else. So, but children are generally very honest, particularly in the classroom environments we have in Sunderland, where children feel trusted, comfortable, there's positive
They're able
relationships.
to- yeah.
It's really a collaborative effort. And there are very few children who score themselves really high and then are shocked that the teacher doesn't agree. And if there is that disparity, there's always a conversation. So there aren't there should not be ever, with a report card, big surprises coming home. Children should understand what their work is demonstrating. It should be shared with children along continuums and checklists, and they should know that this is reflecting where I am. So, again, it's a work in progress. We really appreciate all the parents who took time to give us feedback. Every single comment will be read by several teachers so that we can improve on it.
As far as that goes, Louise, was that the biggest sort of negative comment in terms of the 2 keys?
The keys was one of the concerns. The, we got some of, it's too much information. So we try to balance between wanting to report on things that we're really valuing and measuring now. School isn't the same as even 10 years ago. We looked at writing, you know, do they have an idea?
Sure.
And
Right.
do they have their mechanics? Now we're looking much more fine-toothed, and we feel that parents deserve that information.
Yeah.
So we got a little bit of too much information. Some folks didn't like the order. We purposely put meeting standards at the top and M+ not at the top, because we didn't want people to confuse it with A, B,
That's what I was
C,
wondering.
D. But a lot of people said, why did you do that?
It's hard to get out of that mindset.
Yes,
and that's
and
what
we
I was,
really
you know.
want people to, we really want children and families to understand that mastery or meeting, or we're gonna work on that language.
Right.
The standard is a high standard. If
Right.
you've reached the standards we've set out in Massachusetts for a learner, you're in very good shape. And that M+ is really where a child goes far beyond, shows thinking far beyond, but it's not the goal. The goal is to get deep with these standards. And so that's why we were reluctant to put M+ at the top, because of the visual of that. But I understand parents saying,
Right.
this is crazy, you know,
Yeah.
so we got some negative
It's a
feedback
curve.
on
It's
that.
definitely a
Yes,
curve.
so we'll continue to work on it. It's a work in progress, and our goal is to hold all of ourselves accountable for these very rigorous standards. And that's one of the things that, one of the criticisms we got was, you moved ahead before you had all your rubrics in place. Yes, we didn't have all of the rubrics in place yet. However, I can guarantee that every single child was taught to the standards that we're accountable to, because we have data.
Did you have data?
That every single teacher held to those standards, because that's what they were responsible for. So it moved us very quickly into ensuring that children are experiencing the kind of learning that the state is asking us to provide, the kinds of educational experiences, and high rigor. So it takes a while. It'll probably take us a few more cycles to really refine our rubrics, but I'd rather be in that place than this fall introducing for the first
whole new-
time.
sure.
Here's your new rubric we think is really good. And by the way, here's the new report card. So it was intentionally by design, but I understand that some families felt like, boy, my child didn't know how to reach M+. Well, that's not the
But that's not the goal.
The goal is to reach M because you are in very good shape with that M.
Yeah.
So that's where we are with it. So, but we take seriously every concern and question because a report card is a tool to communicate between an educator, a child, and a family. And if it isn't clear, we can do better.
It's
Yeah.
difficult to,
I'm-
yeah.
And part of why I asked if we could do it was because if we could, have this review is to kind of keep the support and momentum behind, behind this, because I think,
Because I think we were all really supportive and want to share that,
Yeah.
yeah.
so this like further supports.
Because I think, honestly, I was never a big fan of report cards because I felt like
See, we love
they
them.
were,
We love a report card. We love a test.
well, not because I'm opposed to tests, but it was, I'm sure a good tool for teachers, but I felt like not a great tool for students and parents in the past. Because, it was a judgment and not a lot of what you could do with it.
Right.
And so I feel like here, and especially with, these kinds of things, here's what you can do with it here, between what
Right,
your,
it's
what
all
your
right
kid is
here.
saying and what the teacher is saying. Oh, this is why, you've got approaching proficiency, and this is what we can keep, work on to take it further. Because even at the level of the standard pieces within it, it can still be, well,
What does that
I don't
mean?
know. I don't know what to do to help you here. Yeah. But you get down to the level of the rubric and it's like, oh, now it's a tool for parents, for the kids can embrace what they get that from the, feedback in the classroom of the teachers, but parents with their kids at home can do more of that. And I feel like, okay, now this is something that's more just like putting a label on you. You got an A or a B or a C.
Exactly.
Well, and I think it honors different learners, which
Yes,
is,
and
I mean,
that's
we
the
have very
goal.
different learners in my house, and this really reflects that. You can really get an honest assessment of
Well,
what's
I
happening.
appreciate all of that, and one of the things we did not do this year that we will do in the fall is post all our rubrics. We didn't do that because we were still learning them,
working
quite
on them.
honestly, and
Right.
Sure.
developing them. But then, when all of the rubrics are available for families, if they have questions, it will be much clearer. But again, we were still tweaking them and doing our very best to be, to honor where children were and what the teachers knew, but it was a learning year for all of us. So in the fall, in September, those rubrics will be posted on the website. Any parent can click in at any time to understand better where their child is learning or demonstrated behaviors are and what the next step is. So,
And it seems
Thank
like
you
it'd
for
be a
that.
nice tool for the parent-teacher conferences too, to
Absolutely.
be able to like,
good avenue.
to
Absolutely.
understand, okay, here's
Yeah.
specifically the things we're working on, with Johnny or Jenny or whatever, and you can see it in terms of.
and it's challenging, but I really appreciate the support the school committee has shown, and again, when parents would contact me, I welcome the questions, the criticisms, because it helps us be better.
Think about
And
it.
it helps us reflect on,
reflect.
oh, we thought that was clear, but it isn't.
Yeah.
And so we'll continue to tweak it in the fall when we sent out this sort of tweaked version. We'll ask once again, is this clearer? Give us the feedback. And we won't rest until we feel that it
Yeah, feel
really
like it's got-
does what we're trying to do, which is to be as clear and consistent across all of our grades and schools as we possibly can with anything that is attached to human behavior, which is learning. So, that's what we,
Louise,
yes.
will the rubrics ever will the kids get weaned off of the rubrics? Because right now, we're so literal with the rubrics, like title, 10 points, opening paragraph, do you know what I'm saying? Like, and we're going back, or I'm saying we, my son is going back and forth, but do you know what I mean? As they get older, does that kind of
Well,
come away?
Yeah.
So
At the high
that they
school, we have
initiate that
rubrics.
kind of,
Well, that's the goal, is they internalize it. And
Yeah.
each project, teachers can have project specific. Like for this project, we might be really focusing on character development. So that might be worth a little more this time. So teachers, there isn't an absolute rubric for every project, but writing needs to meet certain standards. However, rubrics are more descriptive. Again, it's not a teacher's judgment or the teacher was in a cranky mood that day and
Right.
gave me a B
Right.
minus.
right,
There's none of that. It's
Do
very
you
clear.
have a title?
And so, well, I'll say my husband teaches the university level. He has rubrics.
Right, okay.
You know, rubrics are an effort from educators to be more objective, less subjective. They don't fit every project all the time, but it's like being transparent.
It's just a really
This
clear
is-
standard of.
Yeah, it's transparent. And another aspect of standards-based teaching, which, and grading, which we're evolving towards, is you can always get a do-over. We're not averaging
no, I
in
know.
how you used to do. If you would like another opportunity, the goal is you meet the standard, you can try again. And that's what real standards-based is about. I mean, if you think of, I always think of a driver's license. You can fail 5 times, but if the 6th time you did everything, you get your driver's license. It doesn't have little marks on it that it took you 5 times, but it's an absolute standard.
It should.
Okay, maybe there's, yes, maybe. But, you know, that's a performance assessment. You might have memorized the whole thing, but if you get in the car and don't do that parallel parking the way that the
Not mastered,
standards,
right.
it's not mastered, you will
Right.
not get the license.
Right.
That's standards-based grading. So we're trying to move towards, it's crystal clear, nobody testing a driver makes a surprise move. They don't ask them to do something you haven't studied, been told you're gonna do, and it's pretty clear. This is what you have to do to accomplish it.
And there's no tricks.
Right, and
Yeah.
so that's, and it's.
I'm not gonna say pull a Yui.
How much do you think, I don't wanna draw this out too long, but in terms of the rest of the state, and, I mean, cause that would be exciting too, to see it really get
State level?
adopted more broadly and,
Well, the Department of Education, or Mass DESE, advocates rubrics and standards-based grading heavily. They have many examples of sample lessons and units, model units that they've posted. They're trying to create 100 model units. They're up to, well, they're very close, where they post, this is what teaching to the standards looks like, and guess what? They all have rubrics. Every unit has a rubric. And so it's based on what we know leads to best learning. So it's advocated. The big disconnect is, and I won't get into it, is the testing
Yeah.
part. But I
right
promise
on
not
my
to talk
agenda.
about it.
It's on the list.
It's on the
Yeah.
list.
I like
for
tests,
Later.
I don't like all tests.
I made my opinions
Yeah.
known in
Okay.
print.
Alright.
But, yeah, so that's a big disconnect, because that isn't a do-over. That isn't based on transparency. That doesn't give children time to think. And
Doesn't fit
it's
overhead.
completely the anathema of what we're trying to do with assessment, learning, and instruction. It's the absolute polar opposite. Not that I have an opinion. So, but that's, you know, the state is buying into that, but it's, so they're sending a mixed message to us, frankly.
Yeah.
But, I think it's the way to go. And
Thank
we'll
you.
continue to evolve.
Thanks so much, Louise.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Louise.
Thanks for heading out. Alright, our next discussion item, policy, IC, school year, school day.
Sure. I brought this to you last month, and it's just a reaction because we don't have this policy on the books. I think it's important for the school committee to have a policy saying that you set a calendar for 180 days.
I can't
and
believe we don't have
900
a policy for that. We don't have a policy.
We have a policy for everything else,
Everything,
but we do
yeah.
not have one. And that, you know, that's, we guarantee 900 hours on the elementary level, 990 at the secondary. And this is simply stating that we have such a policy.
So this is a brand-new policy.
It's a
that we
brand-new
got last
policy.
year.
So, this provides the opportunity for the ask this question that I should know, probably as a school committee member, but I never have the answer, which is, so what happens if we go past 5 snow
5
days?
snow days.
We have 6 this year. We're just making them up.
So, but isn't there times where it runs, so if but the teacher contracts, right, we teach to this date, and then, so what happens if we need to go to the,
They don't
use the
match?
187th date, and that goes into the day after they're,
So let's go back to February, okay, or March.
No.
When most of the, by then the snow days are pretty much over. If we had a terrible year, a really terrible year, and we had, I don't know, something absurd, 15 snow days.
yep,
we would have to guarantee that the teachers would not teach beyond June 30th.
Mhm.
And we would have to do whatever we needed to do to ensure that, which probably would mean taking away April vacation. Some schools did Saturdays.
Okay.
So,
And then,
Yeah.
okay, do schools ever that try to get the teachers to reopen the contract and
they
change
have,
the
but
date?
it's usually not very successful.
It's probably easier to get Desi to say 179 days is good enough.
Good.
Yeah.
And in fact,
I was just thinking, because I
We-
mean, April
yeah.
vacate versus losing April vacation, that's, anyway, okay.
but that's
That's what you-
basically.
that's
Communities
what
have done
okay.
that. I know that there've
Right.
been a lot of, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the state, we were talking about that, Keith and I, before the meeting. The state is not generous in granting any exceptions.
Yeah,
We had that ice storm, and I was talking about the central part of the state, and it was a state of emergency. They were closed for well over 2 weeks
yeah.
and wanted to get some sort of special dispensation. Nope. So they did. They took away April break. There were some other things. I'm trying to think of other holidays that may have been in there. but-
Memorial Day.
Yeah, they
Okay.
worked through it, so that's
All right.
the answer.
I've got it, thank you.
Yep.
All right, so we're voting on that this week, so can I get a motion?
Make a motion to accept the school calendar, 180 days, 900 hours for elementary level education.
All right, all those in favor?
We got
Do we
a
have a
second?
second?
Second.
Oh, sorry. Doug second.
Doug? Okay.
Yep, sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and under new business, salary recommendations.
So attached to your end of year, the report that I gave you, you have 2 other pieces of paper that look like this. And these are the salary recommendations. The color one is our hourly employees, and then on this paper, it's the recommendations for our salaried employees in the building. And just so you know, on the administrator salary, the non-colored one, Sunderland's share of these union administrators is 21.31% for everyone except for your principal. So you're not paying that amount of money, you're paying 21.31% of it.
So what we have asked the other schools to do is to take it in a 2-part vote. The hourly, non-union personnel, which is the one with the yellow stripes, and then the salary for the administrative level. The non-union personnel, Patty has shown you a 2% increase and a 2.5% increase. We have the 2.5% in the budget. I will tell you that the other school committees have granted the 2.5. I like to say that if we can, for our hourly employees to go to the higher amount, we're not always able to do that. These, for the most part, many of them, not all, but many of them are year-round employees.
Are these are all benefited jobs?
No.
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 And as you can see, the difference between paying 2% and 2.5 for the first category is, what is the
$500.
difference? Yeah, $500. So it's nominal, the increase to your budget.
Do we want to
Do you want-
start on one, let's start on
So
that
do you
one?
want two
Sure.
separate?
Two separate.
separate.
So we need a motion and a second on whether or not you want to go to the 2 or 2.5.
I'm inclined to go to the 2.5. I do have a question. Do we know what other, departments in the town? I can't remember now from town meeting.
You mean what they
honestly.
get?
What the, yeah, I know, shoot, okay.
I don't, sometimes they don't get anything.
I'm not sure that, I know in Deerfield, I can only speak for Deerfield, it's often not public
It's
information.
not, right.
And they'll often say, that we hope to give 2, but in reality, they often get 3. So,
I mean, I think I agree with you, Doug. I think when we can do it,
Yeah.
we should. So I would be inclined to do the 2.5 increase.
So is that a motion or?
Can I get a motion? Doug, I think you have to do it.
Okay. Make a motion to go with the 2.5% increase version of the this non-union
Union
personnel salaries or rates.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and then the recommended administrator salaries. Can I get a motion for that?
Are these all 52-week, is your all academic year or full year or?
These are all full year, except for the CPC grant coordinator, Karen Green. So
That's a 10-month or 9-month position or?
it's,
I think it's 205 days.
yeah, it's based on days.
Also, just comment on that, I don't know if you should have said this before, but anything, well, at the 2% increase, you know, it's really effectively a decrease, because even at the low rate of inflation right now, it's still
So when you're,
it's a little over 2%, so it would be.
The next
yeah,
bracket.
Anyway, but, I mean, as tough as financial times are in town, it's hard to not do that, so.
I think I need a second on my motion.
You made a
Who
motion?
made the motion?
Somebody made the motion.
On the
The
Administrators?
administrative
No, I
salaries.
asked about which ones were 10-month.
Oh, okay. Can I get a motion?
I'm sorry, I'm still processing.
Well, we can discuss after, right?
Oh, yeah,
Since you
sure.
put the motion on,
That-
then,
That's a
yeah.
good point, yeah. So I make a motion to accept the recommended FY 2015 salaries for administrative salaries.
Second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? That's the way I know it, Doug.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, you're right. You are right.
And the early childhood coordinator, that was actually, that she's full year? That's a full year?
She's
position?
3 days a week,
3 days a week, though, okay, yeah.
but 12, yeah,
12
but 12
months.
months, yeah.
So I wasn't sure about that.
It's an awfully big raise for Principal Brashevsky.
That was
A
already
lot of zeros.
I know.
That was
Yeah,
already
it's already
negotiated.
negotiated.
Yeah, I assume so.
All right, if there's no further discussion?
For the cameras, it was all zeros.
Yes,
There was no
yeah,
raise.
There
There was
wasn't
no
right,
raise.
let's
Really
make
make it
that
super
clear.
clear.
You're getting me
Yeah.
into trouble.
I know, it's gonna be a brew. What are they doing?
Well, I can say that it is the difference between what he has been paid as an interim to
Yeah.
principal. So
Okay.
it is an increase.
Right.
But this is the negotiated for his
Right.
first
For his
year as
first year as
principal.
principal.
I don't want the town of Sunderland
I
to
know,
think that
that's
we're
what
not
was-
giving our
right.
principal an increase.
Right.
So, yes, there is an increase
For the position, yeah.
for the position, yeah.
All those in favor? Of the recommended administrator salaries?
Aye.
Before you?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
And we're already on to, oh, no, park testing, how could I?
Oh, dearie, park testing. So I have been going before all of the school committees to ask their approval and support to abstain from park for next year. And the reasons for that, you know, Louise alluded to it a little bit, I've talked about it in the past. First of all, we have a choice for next year only, to either do MCAS or park. I have concerns about the park test. I've observed it on the online versions in Whately and Conway. In both cases, relatively small schools, relatively normal class sizes, anywhere from 18 to 24. There were 6 to 7 adults in each case. And the reason for that is that we do not have consistent platforms for all of our computers. So when we are downloading the park test to the different computers, depending upon the system, and they did tons of preparation work ahead of time, depending upon the system, sometimes the graphics came up, sometimes the tools came up, sometimes it just shut down altogether. They got through it. We had all the people there, but I was trying to carry that out in my head, saying, all right, all 5 schools have a testing window, let's say of 3 to 4 weeks, doing simultaneous testing. We are not in a position, technology-wise, to do that as a district. The other alternative would be to stretch the testing period out for such a long time that I would find it really disruptive to the school setting, because all you do would be spending your time testing.
Trying to do that, get that done.
So, that's one reason.
Right, it's
The Board of Education has not adopted it yet as the preferred test, and they may not. People seem to think it's a done deal, but it's not. I told you about 70% of the students failed at New York last year, and they have not made alterations to the test yet. It has some good questions. I thought, and Louise was with me in Whately, there were some very good questions, but not substantially improved over MCAS. So I think we know what to do. We've done the pilot, we've done 2 paper and pencil, we've done 2 online. We know what we need to prepare for. So we're going into this with our eyes open, but let's take the year, let's get our technology up to date. Let's find out if it's actually going to be the test. There's a whole other political aspect to it, which I have alluded to in the past. Our commissioner is on the park board, which to me is a huge conflict of interest. Many of the school systems in the eastern part of the state are going to the state ethics board regarding that. The fact that Pearson, who developed Park, simultaneously developed remedial curriculums to be sold as a result of New York's experience. It's a red flag to me, and the final red flag to me was that all of the superintendents in the state were told by the Department of Ed about a month ago, take the park and we'll hold you harmless for a year. So I had colleagues who were superintendents who said, I'm retiring in a year. We're a level 3 school. I'm gonna go my last year being held harmless. To me that's collusion. So, not that it's very upsetting to me. And so I would like to not do it for next year. And the other school committees, first Whately, they were so outraged. They have asked me to send a letter to the commissioner on their behalf. And signing on to that is also Deerfield and Frontier. Just expressing concerns over some of the points that I mentioned. I don't know if any of you saw Louise's article in the Gazette that she wrote a month ago. It was superb. It was extremely well researched. So I'm going to ask Louise to help me draft it, because I don't want to be just a loudmouth. I really want to state factual concerns. So I guess I'm asking for 2 things. I'm asking for permission not to do the park next year, and if you want your name as a school committee, just Sunderland School Committee included on that letter.
So does that need a vote? Okay, I would make a motion to not take this test next year, the park test next year, and I would make a second motion to put our name on the letter to Congress, the president,
Whoever will listen.
House of Representatives, whoever.
Second.
Both of them, Doug?
Sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you very much.
Alright. And we are moving on to reports. I just want to wish everyone a great summer. This is our last meeting for the school year, and I also want to just send out best wishes to our retiring teachers, Karen Copeland, Phyllis Jordan, and Helen Kittredge. I wish them well and the best in future endeavors. And that's all I have. Do we have anything on the collaborative?
I do not. There was a meeting that I missed.
All right. And Ben?
Great. Our current kindergarten number total is 18 students enrolled for next year. School choice update. We have 2 kindergarten students who've been accepted as school choice, and those are siblings of other school choice students currently enrolled in the school. We also have accepted 2 first grade school choice students, and we had a total of 4 openings in that grade.
What's the class total in first grade? Oh, that's the guys
so the-
coming up.
Right, yep.
Okay,
So this is
the
next
2
year, yeah.
grades, I got it, yep, I'm sorry.
So
I was thinking Claire's, and I
So
was
we were
like, where are you
saying
gonna
for
put-
grades K through 3, we would cap class size at 18 students. Combined, the 2 kindergarten classes right now have 32 students, so that would create the 4 openings.
Great.
Students recently participated in a writing celebration, which was organized by our 2nd grade teacher, Sarah Burstein. Students were placed in groups that were comprised of multiple grade levels, and each group transitioned from classroom to classroom, where individual students were allowed to share their own work. And it was a wonderful event, and the students really were able to showcase what they had been working on throughout the school year. We recently had a walk and roll to school day event, which was organized and implemented by Matt Howell, our ELL teacher. And we had a bunch of families either walk, roll, or scoot to school, and breakfast was provided by PTO and families. Our 5th and 6th grades just took a field trip to Boston, where they went on a duck boat tour to the Boston Science Museum and took a stop at the State House as well. We just held our Junior Olympics last week for grades 3 through 6, and the students had a blast, and the weather cooperated for both days. Last week we had our annual spring carnival, and I want to just mention that the food for this event was very generously donated by Bub's Barbecue, the Sunderland Corner Store, and Full Bloom Farm out of Whately. So thank you very much to those organizations, and I apologize if I'm missing anyone else who had donated food. The event featured a bounce house, snow cone machine, and a dunk tank, which yours truly found himself in multiple times. But Mr. McFarland was there as the lifeguard, and so that allowed. He had my back.
So funny.
2 teachers are going to be moving to teach new grade levels next year. Donna Carmody, who's currently teaching kindergarten this year, will be teaching 4th grade. And Alicia Reed, who's been our preschool teacher, is going to be teaching in 1st grade. Additional new hires: Savannah Phillips for 5th grade, Barbara Mullen, K through 3 SPED. Carolyn Burns, who actually works part-time at Deerfield and part-time at Sunderland, is now going to be the full-time speech and language pathologist at Sunderland. And Catherine Rashat, who is part-time at Deerfield Elementary School, is now going to be full-time in the district between Deerfield and Sunderland. So we're extremely happy to have all of them on. We are interviewing for the preschool vacancy this week, and I do foresee some IA openings that we'll have to interview over the summer as well.
And I just mentioned, because I don't know if the committee knows this, what Ben did along with Louise, and I think most cases, but other teachers, is he had the candidates, the finalists, teach sample lessons, and people watch that. And we've been trying to use this as a model district-wide. I think it's much more indicative of someone's teaching rather than just the questions and interviews. So I applaud him for doing that. I know this is his first year. It's a lot of hires to do in your first year. So.
Thank you. Tomorrow night is 6th grade graduation, and then on August 20th, we have an ice cream social for incoming kindergarten students and new families.
And they ride the bus.
They will ride the
Yeah.
bus, yes, and I'll be the
That's a
tour
big-
guide
yeah.
for that. Any recommendations for good stops along the way?
Well, last year there was a bear
There was-
here.
All right,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we'll try to avoid any wildlife.
Yeah.
I'd also like to talk a little bit about what we've been doing to set up the master schedule and our IA placement for next year. A group of teachers and staff members got together last week and developed a master schedule that provides each individual grade with a separate literacy block, writing block, and math block. The purpose of doing this is to, one, provide them with opportunities so they can visit their specials, but also so that we can pool our resources to certain parts in the building that need the most instructional support. So for example, first block, the 6th grade might have math next year, while 3rd grade will have reading. Well, if that's the case, our math interventionist can move into the 6th grade and provide support, where a reading specialist can provide support in the other grade. And then at some point during the day, those roles would flip and the interventionists would be moved to the area that's needed best. For a while now, IAs have been looked at as providing services in a few different capacities. Number one, they've supported a specific teacher. Number two, they've supported a specific student or group of students. Or number three, they've supported maybe the special education program. What I'm looking to do for next year is try to think outside the box a little bit and really ask the question at all times, where in the building do we need the most support during this time? So, for example, if some students in the building are receiving instructional support in a small group setting from a special education teacher, their IA who might be with them during other parts of the day may not necessarily need to be with that small group. So that IA could be placed back in the classroom or in a completely different grade level to provide additional instruction for the students in the building. So it's really a way of kind of thinking outside the box and really maximizing learning opportunities for our students. Additionally, I am looking to take some of the IA positions and also, in addition to supporting classrooms, they might play a slightly different role than in the past. So for example, one might be the writing coach. Some of our IAs are highly skilled in that area, and if they're able to bounce from grade level to grade level and provide the teachers with writing support, provide the read and recovery teacher with writing support, it really maximizes what we have going on in the building. A big hot topic this year has been the class size of our current 5th grade students. I'm confident that with the schedule that we've set up and the systems that we'll have in place where we're maximizing the resources in the building, the students are going to have a very successful experience in 5th grade next year. In addition to that, we have a number of instructional assistants in the building who are certified teachers. So, like I said, what are the areas in the building that need the most support? And a classroom that might be larger than some of the other classrooms will need additional support. So placing an IA who has a teaching certification with that group of students will help provide a good experience for the students throughout the entire year.
Does that save us any money on payroll?
Yep.
Yeah.
It does? Okay, good. Because I love it. That sounds great. And I'm sure it took days, actually, to figure that out. But in the end, do you know what I'm saying? Because you're moving people around.
Shifting everybody.
Right.
And there's still a ton of work I need to do, and this will take place over the summer.
Yeah,
Figuring out where an instructional assistant can be at certain times. But 99% of the work is in place with the setup of this master schedule.
That's great.
So I'm confident it's
I think
going to
it
work.
makes a lot of sense,
I
Ben.
think it does
It's
too.
great.
This is a model that's worked really well at Frontier, and in Deerfield, they started doing it this year. We can't just keep hiring instructional assistant after instructional assistant, because we need to really utilize their skills, and we are blessed in this district to have some incredibly talented and well-educated instructional assistants. So, we really are, and in fact, at first, the instructional assistants were a little reluctant to this 3 years ago when we started at Frontier, because it's a change, it's a shift. They'd been used to working with one teacher, but when they realized that we were really trying to tap into their strengths, they liked it because it brought, changed their day.
Sure.
It gave them some, you know,
And they get to bring their best to
access
the
to
table, they
different-
get to
right,
bring out their, yeah.
Right.
and ages.
Yep. So I applaud Ben for doing this. I think it's a great model. It will save us a little money. We always seem to have a surprise, and
Yes.
it's nice to have a little bit in reserve for that surprise.
When it comes.
Speaking of surprises, you still have to go, right?
To where, yes.
Okay.
Mine's really brief, but
Okay.
So, and I just, the comment is just my only, thing I'd say is, I mean, for this upcoming sixth grade class, the current fifth grade class, that, we've seen a model that worked well, and if, when they were in fourth grade, and I think if we can replicate that in terms of this, in some way, we've talked about that all along. Is there a possibility for something like that that can work? And I think if we can, then I think it can be a very successful year. I think if it's looking like it's not as clear that that's the case, and I think this year was challenging, but I think that those numbers and the way, in a kind of just traditional setup is, not what I feel like we want to do for the kids. So if it's, if there's doubts about being able to really make this work in terms of the strength of the instructional assistance that can be brought to bear to that setting and the way the class can be taught, then I think, then I'd encourage rethinking and using, the money in that case that we for an extra teacher to go hire another teacher. And I realize that, the teacher you get under those circumstances may not be the one we would choose if we were hiring somebody for a long term, in terms of who's going to go for that job, and there's other implications financially for the town, and when they're going to go on unemployment after.
frankly, Doug,
So-
that was one of our concerns too, was not having a lot of flexibility in the acquisition of somebody who may have the skills that we're looking
Right.
for. The model that Ben has proposed would really replicate the model that you had in the fourth grade and is not the current model.
Yeah,
So
Can I
very clearly,
make-
what we're saying is that we're utilizing stronger instructional assistance with teacher certification as the instructional assistant in the sixth grade for next year, rather than hiring a full one-year teacher.
So,
And separating two classrooms, which we've had pupils withdraw from enrollment for next year, so that has gone down. And-
yeah, I just want to clarify, the instructional assistants in our building are very dedicated, and they're all very, very skilled, okay? However, just like all of us, we all have different skill sets, we all have different strengths, and we all have areas that for improvement. So the model that I'm proposing is going to be able to pool the resources of the strengths of the instructional assistants and put them in a spot where they are most successful, so that in turn, the kids are the most successful.
Right, I did not catch that we were talking about not hiring a full-time teacher for sixth grade, and that's what we're saying. And so if I didn't get it, I just wanna make sure everybody understands, because we had 10 parents here when we talked about having to. And so I think that everybody's gonna feel like they understand if I just say that out loud. And also
yeah.
because the population has gone down for those grades, and so what that would translate into would be 2 full-time teachers for a classroom of 13 and 12, which, was
You
the
actually ended
school.
up getting
You actually
another
have somebody
student.
moving in.
So it was a wash,
Oh.
Tracy.
Okay.
Somebody's moving out, but somebody's moving in.
Oh, okay,
The
okay, I
number is
didn't
still
know
at
that.
27.
So we're still at 27.
Right now,
Okay.
we're at 26.
Okay, this is good to know.
But I-
Every day's a new day here.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
And it
But
could
I would
change tomorrow.
suggest, if I could, just because, like Tracy and Doug are both saying, because we sat here and parents were here and.
Yeah, I just feel like.
That was the plan. I feel like, and I have said this to you, Ben, we want to just be really upfront with what the plan is, which is a really great plan, because we have this second certified teacher in the building who will be in sixth grade. So, I mean, I'm thinking if it's possible to sort of draft a letter out to those parents and just let them know, this is our plan, this is what we're gonna do for your sixth grade class, and here's why it's gonna work, and here's why it's gonna be great. I feel like parents wanna hear that, I think.
How about even like a meet and greet, coffee and, you know, for an hour on a Tuesday night? I'm just saying, you know, in terms of starting the school year off, you know, this is a new phase and, you know, here's your classroom and
Could perhaps do
the
that.
sixth grade teacher
I just
might
don't think you
want
last
to.
week in
Yeah, I don't think you
August.
can
Or
over-communicate.
when school, you know, I'm talking about even when school starts,
You know,
like,
I
you
That's
know,
what I'm,
wanna-
yes,
oh, okay.
you know,
Okay.
you know,
Right.
school has begun and this is a new, you know,
Yeah.
just a question, you know, I mean, I don't know.
But
have
I
to-
do think too,
yeah.
something sooner rather than later in terms of the actual plan
Mm-hmm.
as we close out the school year, because, you know, it looks different from what we thought might happen.
I just got asked at baseball about the
just-
two
right,
teachers, and that
right.
was baseball ended a week ago.
Right.
And I was like, yes, that's the plan.
But
I
I,
need to caution parents, though, because of our limited resources, and because in order to accomplish this, we had to hire at bachelor's step 0, and we had to also eliminate a classroom aide. You run the risk of having 2 disparate classrooms.
Right.
And you run the risk of many parents requesting one teacher over the other. And that is a much more negative situation than having a large class with 2 separate classrooms, broken out, so you have 13 and 13 or 13 and 14 with 2 certified teachers. So, you know, I need to caution people, that was not the panacea of making everything.
No,
no,
Ray,
you had
said
always,
that
you had
also.
always said that, Marty, you had always,
And
yeah.
this parent that was asking about that was so on board for the one teacher that's been in place in the 6th grade, that it was worrisome to her,
Okay.
the idea of
That
splitting.
she wouldn't get the veteran
But I
teacher.
communicated to her that it was split, so, you know what I'm saying, it supports where we're heading,
Honestly, I
for
can't.
some parents,
Sorry.
you know.
Cutting off. I can't speak for all the other parents who, you know, who've been here before and expressed concerns and things, but I've certainly had those concerns. But I've always, and I think expressed it before, like if there was some form of, whether it's co-teaching or along the lines of what you're describing, that I think that can be an ideal learning environment. You get exposure. I mean, just like you said, I mean, of course, everybody's going to be, my kid's got to be in Ellen's class. You know, you want that experienced teacher.
Right.
You know, and you've been waiting, you know, and so, so to kind of, you know, diffuse that dynamic, if we, you know, again, that we really do get that appropriate environment where they are in those learning environments that aren't in those big numbers, then that's a terrific situation. And
I understand
so-
now,
and
Ben.
we
I
look forward to
totally get it.
supporting you do that successfully.
Absolutely, and so the support, like I said, is not just gonna come from this other instructional assistant.
Right.
Right.
Our during math,
The
our
whole-
math interventionist,
Right.
you know,
Right.
Yeah.
is gonna be in there.
It's a
as-
whole strategy.
It's a
Right,
whole,
yeah,
for the-
It's
for the
like-
whole building.
Right, it's like, it's not one thing
But
that
Right.
you just plunk
I,
down.
I also agree, err on the side of over communicating with the parents
over-communicate,
on
right.
this, because, and not everybody's gonna like it, but I don't think that means, obviously, that it's, that,
So you're suggesting that a letter go out from Ben outlining this model to parents?
It could be
I
an
think
email
so,
and then
Marty. I
enclosed
think
with the
that would be the
classroom
best.
assignment, which you get whether or not there's 2 classrooms or 1 classroom, you get your teacher assignment. In with that teacher assignment could also be a subsequent letter, you know. But I think an email
Yeah.
is fine for now.
Okay.
And then I mean, that's just, I'm trying to think about the person receiving it.
Right.
You know, like,
I don't think-
I was notified in June, so I'm wrapping my head around this, now I get my teacher assignment, and this is the game plan.
Okay.
You know,
And I think as a board, because we've been discussing it for so many months, I think that, you know, that's now the plan. I think we want to communicate that as soon as we can, that,
Absolutely.
you know, that's what we came up with.
Is that something you could put
That's what Ben
together in
came
the
up
next?
with, you know?
Well, you have 2.5 days left.
That's it.
and the other, you know, piece of this is, well, we've had an example with Donna where that successful, you know, her working in that capacity and you know, at not at the pay level of a full teacher, but when we then saw that we did have a real longer-term full-time position, she was obviously a strong candidate for it and ultimately hired, so it can have longer-term
Absolutely.
success
Yeah.
for the building and that person too, so.
Thank you. I totally understand now. I was sort of getting it, and then I wasn't sure, and now I get it.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ben.
Is the new student a boy or girl?
I think it's a girl.
Another girl? Okay.
Do you have anything else, Ben?
Tomorrow morning, we have an all-school sing where we're gonna honor the departing sixth grade students and our retirees. Field day was moved from today to Thursday, and then half day of school on Friday, last day.
Last day.
It's a school year.
You taking your wife away for the weekend? I hope.
I hope.
No, don't
Is that on the budget?
Don't.
Because we paid for it.
state that out loud. I'm gonna get in trouble now. We're not going anywhere, for the record.
Can I apologize to Ms. Gendron and Ramaska for not getting the spring concert on the sign. When I did that week, I just, in reading the calendar on the school website, I was thinking it was like an all-school sing, which sometimes I get up there if I can fit it, and other times I don't, if I've got a lot of other stuff on. I certainly would have, if I'd realized that, would have put that up. I think it's a big event, and so just officially, I'm sorry.
You're forgiven. All right, our superintendent report.
Very brief, you have a short report in front of you. ASOP, the substitute placement absent management system went live June 4th. I'm really glad that we did the trial now. The first 6 days were interesting, but I get a daily report of district-wide, and everything's been pretty good. Actually, it's been very good the last 2 days. So I think we're going to start the year. A lot of it is just educating people into the new system. So, and just because you may or may not have heard this, but we were required by the Department of Ed to file our district-determined measures, which are the measurements that we have to submit for all of our courses. So for instance, 4th grade ELA, you know, usually they'll say it's MCAS, and it could be another measurement, whether it's a teacher self-directed or teacher self-created, or it's a writing rubric or something. So those were filed. And just to thank you all, I know I saw most of you last week at my evaluation, but it's really been a very interesting year. It's had you know, some real lows, but for the most part, really highs. And I really enjoyed myself. And I am looking to having my evenings free. My husband's looking forward to having his wife back. But it was a great first year, so thank you for your support, and I look forward to next year.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
so
you
much,
too, Ben, really. Just like you said, there was some lows, and it really,
Yeah.
Yeah,
we really came a long way.
absolutely. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Let's get it. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, who did the motion?